Hi, welcome to this recorded session on situational judgment tests. I'm Louise Sethi and I'm a careers consultant. This session includes some practice questions, so please have a pen and paper at the ready so you can make notes. So what are the different types of tests and which ones are you likely to encounter? There are ability tests, which are usually timed and feature right and wrong answers. They should be produced by approved BPS registered test publishers. Commonly used ones are numerical reasoning and verbal reasoning tests. Diagrammatical, abstract, and logical reasoning tests are often used for engineering, science, and IT roles. Situational judgment tests and strengths and mindset tests focus on assessing your natural responses to given situations. And today we're going to focus on situational judgment tests. Personality questionnaires aren't tests. They're not about right or wrong answers or timed responses. The newest form of assessment is a games-based assessment, and about 10% of employers are using these. It's all about assessing typical behaviour in a situation and somebody's preferred way of doing things. Now, if you go to the Careers Service website, manchester.ac.uk/careers, you will find our psychometric testing pages, and we link to practice tests that we subscribe to so you can do them for free. For instance, graduates first. Situational judgment tests are increasingly common. This is because they are a good way of checking that a candidate has thought about the role they have applied for and what it would be like to do that role. It's very difficult to do this without first researching the employer, their values and focus, and the vacancy. A lot of candidates take fright and don't sit the tests or start them but don't finish. So if you prepare for a test well and complete it, you will have immediately done better than many others. The cutoff point for these tests is likely to be at the 50th percentile, which means that half of the candidates who take the test will pass it. The questions in a situational judgment test are typically about making judgments in challenging situations. They are tailored to a particular organisation and draw on the type of situations you're likely to encounter in the role you've applied for. It's likely that when devising the test, the highest performing members of staff will have been interviewed to find out how they would respond to a given situation. Their answers will then have been taken into account when producing the test. Increasingly, tests also include questions in response to a scenario that test your numerical or verbal reasoning skills. So it's a good idea to brush up on the skills needed to do an ability test. Make sure your maths is up to scratch. It needs to be at GCSE level. So that's a qualification you take in the UK, age 16. And you may find it helpful to do some revision. And the BBC publish a bite-sized guide for Maths GCSE, so that's a really useful free resource. It also helps to brush up on ratios, proportions, and percentages. The style of SJT is evolving, situational judgment tests that is. Standard ones feature a passage of text with answer options, and increasingly they'll include video scenarios and even virtual reality scenarios. This is particularly useful for frontline roles, for instance in the police, where candidates gain a real sense of the situations they will face. How valid a test is continues to be a key driver. But test providers now also focus particular attention on diversity to ensure there is no possibility of a test discriminating in favour of or against particular groups. Situational judgment tests are said to be a good predictor of a candidate's performance in a role, which is why they are increasingly popular with employers. Most situational judgment tests aren't timed. So it is important to adopt the right mindset before sitting a psychometric test. Try and be the most confident version of yourself. Practicing tests can make a big difference. That's why I was keen to let you know about the tests available for you to try out via our career service website. So try and adopt a confident and positive mindset, and it will make all the difference when you come to do one of these tests. Immersive tests are becoming more common, and video format SJTs like this one, which I'm going to play in a moment, is the kind of thing that you might encounter. This one was previously used by the Cabinet Office. This type of test explores how you're likely to behave in a work-based situation similar to that which you would encounter in the job. And it's all about seeing if your behaviour fits well with the needs and values of the organisation. So you're usually given a scenario and asked to perhaps rank different options, maybe identify your most and least preferred options or some combination of the two. The right answers to these scenarios are often not obvious and are shaped by what the organisation feels are important behaviours, values and approaches, or what is a requirement for that particular role. So I'm just going to play you this video.
You're sitting at your desk. Suzanne comes over.
Hi, I'm glad I could catch you today. I wanted to speak to you about these conference calls. Once a week is a bit much, don't you think? Most people just share the same information and end up repeating themselves. To be honest, I try to just carry on with my work when I'm on the call. If someone needs something from me, they can just ask, right? Can you make them every 2 weeks? Or, even better, we could just send an email if there are updates.
So in this scenario, you have to imagine that you are Suzanne's supervisor and you are given options to choose from. And you have to decide which response is counterproductive or ineffective or fairly effective or effective. It's really important to read the options carefully so you don't skip over a key word. So while the answers to this situation weren't shared with us, my view is that the first one is effective, the second one counterproductive, the third one fairly effective, and the last one ineffective. If you wanted longer to have a look at these options, please do pause the recording. So on our website, as I've said, we have psychometric practice tests that you can do to help you feel more confident before doing one as part of a recruitment process. And I mentioned that we subscribe to graduates first, so you can do their tests for free. Practicing does make a difference. However, it is important to study the answers and the explanations given for why one was right or wrong. And in this way, you will learn from any mistakes that you made. So here's an example of a question included in a test from assessment day. And you have to imagine that you are an HR assistant in an NHS hospital trust and you're offering admin support to the team. The trust has just interviewed for a new consultant with 2 external and 1 internal candidate. These posts rarely come up. The trust offered it to an external candidate with less experience in years, but was considered more high-flying with impressive leadership skills. Mr. Bowler, the internal rejected candidate, has come to your office complaining bitterly about the decision and his unfair treatment. And you have to decide what's the most effective response. Now, the important thing to do is to just go off the information given. Don't make assumptions. Certainly don't have any kind of bias towards the person that is described in the situation, for or against. Just go off the information before you have a look at the options listed A, B, C, and D and consider what you think would be the most effective. Now, the correct answer is C. Say you can see why he's disappointed, so you're showing empathy. But the process was stringently fair, and that he could seek full details on the decision and feedback from the interviewers if he likes. So you're being very professional, but you are showing empathy, but you are also explaining that further information is available because you are an HR assistant rather than the sort of high level person who has made the final decision about the recruitment process. So looking at this scenario here, this example, as part of your current project, you are working with colleagues across the finance and marketing teams. You need them to provide you with some critical information before you're able to get on with your own tasks. They were due to send you the information by lunchtime yesterday. It's now 10 a.m. the following day, and you are still waiting. And so you have these options to choose from. A, B, C, and D. And again, you could pause the recording to give yourself time to read them carefully. So we weren't given the actual responses to this. This question was shared with us by a student who had sat a test for a particular employer, but we thought it was an interesting one to include in this session because it's really important to read through these options and not to make assumptions, because very often when I've included this sample question in a session that I've delivered for students, people have been reluctant to choose A as most likely to do because they didn't feel very comfortable about picking up the phone and speaking to somebody. I remember one person saying it sort of felt a bit aggressive. Well, it doesn't have to be aggressive at all. Could, in my view, be the best course of action, because you can phone and you just explain that you haven't yet received an email, just wanted to check if everything was okay. They could have actually had problems with IT. And in that way, you can just have a really pleasant, professional conversation, and you can just explain that the information was due to you and that you are unfortunately unable to get on with your tasks until you have it. Now, D, I would say, is the most likely to do, because here it says get on with other work until the information arrives. But actually, if you look at the passage, it says that you're not able to get on with your own tasks until that information has arrived. And also accepting that your colleagues are busy and will get you the information as soon as they can is really quite a passive response. Okay. So here's a sample question from graduates first. You're working as a graduate trainee manager in a large supermarket. As you wander along some of the aisles, you decide to spend some time observing the behavior of customers. And as you observe, you notice a customer who is walking along the same aisle twice. He appears to be looking for something, but has not picked up anything. The customer walks on and away to the next aisle. What do you do? Well, when answering this question, you need to consider what matters most to the employer. And they are first and foremost concerned about the customer and their experience of shopping in their supermarket. So you've got to bear that in mind. So these are the options open to you. You have to decide on the best response and the worst response. So again, you could pause the recording to take your time over reading these response options. So the best one is B, approach the customer and ask them if there's anything you can help with. That fits with what I just said about what matters most to that employer. It is the customer experience. D is the worst. following a customer around, see if they're actually finding the products they need. Well, it could be of interest to you, but it's not actually helping them. And actually, they might wonder what you're doing. So not the best option, definitely the worst. So here's a link to our psychometric pages, which I mentioned earlier. I've produced a QR code to make it easier for you. If that QR code doesn't work for you, just simply go to the Careers Service website, manchester.ac.uk/careers, and look under Applications and Interviews for the psychometric testing pages. So what could the recruiters be looking for? Well, I've listed some of the behaviours that are going to be of interest to an employer. So again, you could pause the recording to have a good look at these. And here are some more. So might be competency specific to the role. So again, please do pause to have a look at these. So the Civil Service Fast Stream is one of the most popular graduate schemes, and they use situational judgment tests. And one of their representatives kindly shared some tips to pass on to our students, and they were recommending these bullet points here. Okay, so think about the most constructive way of responding. Consider the implications of answer options. Don't jump to a decision. There is time to review your options. Some response options may seem similar, so just check how they differ. And work at an even pace. Rushing may mean you miss some key information. That also just echoed what I was saying before, that you need to be in the right mindset for doing a test. So, really believe in your ability. Just make sure that you don't sort of fall back on stereotypical views when answering a question. Just go off the information before you. Just try and be in your most relaxed frame of mind, but as focused and sharp as possible. Think about the situation you're being asked to answer questions on, and they're just suggesting that you just try and be the most sophisticated version of yourself, be, kind of as confident as possible as you go about doing these tests. Now, with ability tests, you will very likely have a limited amount of time, so speed and accuracy is going to be very important. So we have information on our website about declaring a disability. Employers are concerned to make reasonable adjustments where needed. This might, for instance, result in being given extra time. They can't, however, make allowances after you've completed a test, so it is advisable to contact them in advance of sitting one. If you have concerns about declaring a disability, please do book an appointment to see a careers consultant, something you can do via the Careers Service website. And we do have information on our website about declaring a disability. So if somebody is sort of feeling, oh, I'm hopeless at these tests, should I just give up? No, I would say don't. The very fact that you've taken the trouble to have a look at this recording shows that you've got the right attitude. Hopefully you've learnt a few useful things from this recording. Practicing does make a difference. Learning from any mistakes you've made whilst doing a test would be really beneficial to you. So it's got to be the right kind of practicing. If you just keep on doing tests without checking where you went wrong, that's not going to be hugely helpful. How are tests marked? Is negative marking used? Well, our understanding is not very often. So it's unlikely that a mark will be taken off for the wrong answer. So just to remind you, everything you need to know about psychometric tests is on the Careers Service website. And I just want to wish you the very best of luck, and to remind you that we are here to support you, and you can continue to use the Careers Service for up to 2 years after you graduate. Thank you very much.